The North Loup River Valley is steeped in history, and colorful characters were ever present while settling the area. For today's traveler, the drive along Highway 11 on the west side of the river still leads north to Fort Hartsuff. It offers beautiful scenes of the river, and it passes major tourist areas such as the Happy Jack chalk mine near Scotia. But for the visitor who's truly interested in experiencing the real history of the valley, it's the route along the east side of the river which holds hidden historical treasures. By crossing the river bridge located just outside the present-day town of Alba, one can explore the Deadwood Trail route taken by these early settlers. This trail leads north to Fort Hartsuff. The fort once served to protect settlers in the area and provide a buffer between the warring Pawnee Indian tribes in Nebraska and the Lakota Sioux to their north. Upon discovery of the gold in the Black Hills, the road also served as a route to the gold fields. But today, it is a road seldom taken.
This is the homestead of Conrad Wentworth, Little Buckshot. He was a scout for the Army up at Fort Hartsuff. And this is the second structure. He had the first structure over there where he cut back underneath the rock, and then this is made out of the stone, that same diatomaceous earth that they were pulling out of the hills to burn for Fort Hartsuff. And he actually just made this home out of those blocks. They didn't do soddies. There was a layer of rock, so they dug underneath that rock, used that as a ceiling. And there's documentation in a book that one of the travelers came up where he saw that was very interesting, because most of the rest of the places in Nebraska just had soddies, because that's all they had available. But people through here built kind of back into the cave. The reason Roy said it was, he was sure it was tied into Fort Hartsuff is up there they had limestone or lime concrete mixtures, and it was they'd put in a layer, and they'd move up, and then they put in a layer and move up, and so it was rough on the exterior, so they would smooth out some plaster and they would etch the lines to make it look like blocks. If you look right here, you can see the same etching on this building. And Roy Lindsay, who was the curator at the time, he looked at the wood here and he said, I'm sure that was all cut at Fort Hartsuff, just by the saw marks. It had to be interesting. I think he and his wife had, what, 5 or 6 children? Not very big in the wintertime.
Yeah.
Two kilns, so while one was being burned, they would be unloading the other one and reloading it. So when they were done with that and this one cooled down, they do the same thing here. They would start that one on fire, this one would be unloaded and reloaded. So it was a 24-hour operation. They just kept it going. This was the halfway point between Grand Island and Fort Hartsuff. It was 80 miles, and they couldn't do that in one day with horses and wagons or horses. So this was the halfway point. They called this the Concrete Hotel or the Halfway House or the Beebe Ranch. Doc Joseph Beebe had built this after he got done supplying the lime to build Fort Hartsuff. He built this 2-story hotel. So people would come from Fort Hartsuff to here, spend the night, go on to Grand Island the next day, pick up their supplies, spend the night, and then come back here and spend the night on the way back to Fort Hartsuff. These two walls are originally from the old hotel. They're still part of this garage, but you can see the slip forms that they used, just like Fort Hartsuff, where they would have forms. They would lay down the concrete lime mixture. They'd move the forms up, put in another layer, move the forms up, put in another layer. as I mentioned them earlier, you can see one of the kilns might have been starting to deteriorate because you can see bricks in here from the kilns. You can see the dark area here where that was next to where it got hot. Same way here. It looks like they maybe just mixed it in with the rest of the mix for fill. Camp Ruggles was just on the other side of the river, a little bit to the left. They actually started down to Elba. Later on in the summer, they moved to that point. They went back to Department of the Platte in Omaha during the winter. In '72, they came back and they established, there's the cornfield over there, other side of the river, about a half mile away. Actually, the river used to run next to that cliff at that time. But they camped up there. That would have been Camp Vincent. Camp Canby was another about 2 miles up the river on that side. That would have been '73. And that was named after General Canby, the only general to be killed during the Indian Wars by the Modoc, '74. And then they didn't go back that year. They just moved into Fort Hartsuff for what buildings were built. They had enough that they could stay there the winter.
Any idea how many soldiers would have stayed at these camps?
Well, there's usually 2 companies, 1 company of infantry and 1 company of cavalry. So about 100, 80 to 100 plus, cooks and whatever else they need.
And 50 some horses.
Yeah, wagons.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting, Camp Ruggles, the cavalry unit that was there was the Company E of the 2nd. And that was the same unit that Major Brisbane told right before the battle up in Wyoming where Custer got killed. He told Custer, you need to take some more people with you. Why don't you take these 2 companies of the 2nd? He was one of them. He said, we don't need them. The 7th can do it all.
Oh, yeah.
And he left the 2nd behind.
Famous last words.
Yeah. So these guys that were here would have been in on that if he would have accepted a little help.